first time in 8 years, New Hampshire will have a new governor. On January 9th, Kelly Ayotte will be sworn in as the 83rd governor of New Hampshire. Today, we are welcoming Kelly Ayotte back to the program once again as an elected official, currently as governor-elect. Thank you for being here, Madam Governor-elect.
Hey, good morning, Adam. Great to be with you.
All right, appreciate your time. So you'll soon be moving into the corner office. You know, a lot of people think of you as former U.S. Senator Kelly Ayotte, but you know, you were in Concord for a long time at the Department of Justice, working as a prosecutor and then Attorney General. Before that, I think you were even in the governor's office as governor's counsel.
Yes.
Governor Benson. So this is not unfamiliar turf for you, but as you start to build a new budget and get into this new role, what is the top priority for you in 2025?
Well, I can tell you this, Adam. It was a couple of decades ago, but I did serve as Attorney General and then briefly as the governor's legal counsel. Really, the top priority is keeping New Hampshire in a very strong position. Economically, making sure that we put together a responsible budget for the state of New Hampshire. And, you know, on the campaign trail, I understand the concerns that people have in New Hampshire with inflationary costs and families now as we're heading into the holidays, making sure we don't pass on cost to working families here in New Hampshire. There are other priorities too. You and I have talked about keeping the state safe as a former Attorney General, making sure that we recruit and retain our law enforcement officers, making sure we strengthen our mental health system, and of course the housing issue to help our economy and make sure that people in New Hampshire can afford a place to live.
Let's talk a little bit about immigration. I think that's going to be a big topic right off the bat as people get inaugurated in January. You know, New Hampshire is not a state with a big government footprint, and you've said you stand ready to assist the Trump administration with a mass deportation effort of criminals first. But will this create an added burden, do you think, to the state and potentially to the taxpayer?
Well, Adam, I don't think so, because let's face it, part of the way we keep New Hampshire safe is making sure that we have dangerous criminals off our streets. If there are those that are on the terror watch list, they shouldn't be on our streets or they shouldn't be in our country. So this is about keeping New Hampshire safe, and that's always been my top priority. It's also one of the reasons that I oppose sanctuary policies, because we can look over our border and see what's happened in Massachusetts. There are examples of, for example, criminal matters that we wouldn't want here, but also $1 billion spent housing illegal immigrants. So it's really about protecting New Hampshire and prioritizing our public safety.
You talk about the sanctuary cities. You know, obviously Massachusetts does its thing. Here in New Hampshire, you know, we've heard from police chiefs, particularly in Manchester, saying, gosh, we don't think this policy is going to work in terms of us being able to have outreach to certain communities, that it could impact our ability to police effectively in certain communities. Do you worry about that passing a new state law?
Well, Adam, what I worry about is if we have situations, and we've seen some high-profile examples across the country, where state, local, federal authorities aren't communicating fully about people's status and crimes they've committed, that really impacts public safety. So I respect those police chiefs, and I've worked with many of them, but I also hear from many in law enforcement as well that it's important that we're able to cooperate at all levels to keep the people of New Hampshire safe.
If President Trump calls on you as governor to deploy the New Hampshire National Guard in assistance of these mass deportation efforts, how will you respond?
Well, Adam, I can tell you this. We're going to be prioritizing making sure, number one, our law enforcement officers, that we have enough of those to be able to protect the state. We'll work with the administration to make sure that dangerous criminals are deported, those who are terrorists are deported. When it comes to the assets of the state, it'll depend on what the proposal is. But certainly we're going to make sure that we support those efforts to keep the country and New Hampshire safe. Now, again, you know, under Title 10, the president can actually call the National Guard himself, and that is his decision and when he does that.
It's an interesting legal question here. Do you think it's appropriate, though, to deploy the military domestically for a law enforcement function?
Well, this is beyond a law enforcement function, Adam. We've had open borders, and we know there are people that are coming over those borders that present a danger to the country. So to me, this is a national security issue as well as a basic public safety issue for the country, but especially New Hampshire. My focus is on New Hampshire and making sure that we remain the safest state in the nation, that the people of New Hampshire can be assured that we're going to prioritize their needs.
Are the illegal immigrants who are here in New Hampshire who have not committed crimes, do you consider them a threat to the country?
Well, I would say they obviously are here. Many of them are here for economic reasons. And, you know, I wouldn't say that they're an immediate threat to the country. I'm not saying that. People should follow our laws, though. Listen, we are a nation of immigrants. I'm sure you and I can both trace our roots there, but you should follow the law. And, you know, one of the things I've gotten to do is to go to the immigration ceremonies at the Federal District Court. And the people who have gone through the process legally, and they've waited for years to become American citizens. You know, they learn about our Constitution, our way of life. That is the right process. I fully support that process, and I can see when they've gone through it how patriotic they feel about our country.
One last question on this front. Do you think it's a good idea to end birthright citizenship, as President Trump has proposed?
Well, Adam, I think that this is obviously an issue Washington's talking about, but my priority here in New Hampshire is going to be, again, keeping New Hampshire safe. And obviously there's a lot of legal questions about how that would happen. It could be a long process, but really I'm here to enforce New Hampshire's laws and make sure that we're safe, working with law enforcement, and that'll be my priority. Washington will sort these issues out.
Let's turn to school funding. You know, what deference, if any, does the legislature and you as the governor have to give to the Supreme Court of this state if they decide to uphold that Conval decision?
Well, Adam, I certainly believe, let's see where we are on education funding. First of all, New Hampshire's in a position where we're among the top 10 in the nation in terms of what we're spending per pupil on students, and so that is a combination of the state the state funding and the local funding. And so my priority on education is going to be making sure that we support our teachers, that we have strong curriculum in our public schools, and that every child has the opportunity to reach his or her full potential, and including with giving parents options where the public school is not working for them. And I've seen that in many instances, but we're also going to I'm a product of public schools. We're going to make sure that our public schools are in a strong position.
A lot of Republicans in the House want to make education freedom accounts universal, access for everyone. Does the state have enough money to do that?
Well, Adam, I certainly believe that every parent should be able to decide what's the best venue for my child to succeed. And, you know, there are different places that children succeed, whether it's a charter school, whether it's homeschooling, whether it is in our public schools. And so for me, I believe that's really important that we have those options for parents, but we're going to look at how do we expand opportunities for that to happen? How do we do that in a way that makes sure that our public schools are strong as well? And I look forward to working with the legislature on this issue because it is important that we're always focusing on making sure that each child can reach his or her full potential.
What's your perspective on what's going on with special education funding? Obviously, we've seen costs skyrocket at the local district level, and now the state is saying, well, we don't think we can help out as much anymore. Should the state be helping out more on that front?
Well, you know, one of the problems we have with special education is also the federal funding piece. It's never been funded at the full level of the requirements of what the federal government have given us. So the state has tried to work with local school districts to supplement what they receive, and that's very important funding. We will look at that. And then I'm also going to be fighting as much as I can to advocate for those resources from Washington, too, to support our special education educators and those students who need our help. So we'll be working with local school districts on this issue.
You know, the trans sports issue that was debated so extensively in the legislature this last year, that ended up being under the radar, a very important issue for a lot of voters, a subset of voters who potentially swung the election, some would say. But the law passed, that's in the courts. What if school districts, though, now start to require female students to, as part of their participation, sign something that says, I'm going to compete against athletes no matter what gender they are? If it, you know, essentially the doorway into being able to compete is signing an agreement saying, I'm not going to, you know, boycott any potential games if there's a transgender student on the other side. Is that something that you would think is appropriate?
I'm not sure what that would be. I mean, that would be obviously
it's like the code of conduct, essentially.
Yeah, I guess I haven't. I'm not sure what that is, but my principles on this have been pretty straightforward, and you and I have talked about it in the past. You know, my daughter was a 3-sport varsity athlete. I do believe, as a matter of fairness for women, and also thinking about Title IX and those advancements we've made, that really you should be competing biological women against biological women, and also in terms of safety as well. But primarily it's a fairness issue for me of making sure that they compete at the highest levels.
But do you think it's appropriate for districts to try to sort of go around the law and say, hey, we'd like you to agree to participate?
I mean, listen, I think that when there's a law passed, the district should follow it.
One of the big personnel questions you're going to be facing next year is what to do about the Department of Education and whether there should be a new commissioner. We haven't heard much about Commissioner Edelblu's status. Do you want to see him come back in the role he currently has?
Well, Adam, I'm sitting down with every single commissioner right now during this transition and really talking with them about their priorities, talking with them about the upcoming budget and the challenges we face there, and making sure that we're working together to serve the people of New Hampshire. So I haven't made a decision on any commissioner because we're working together, focusing on the budget, and I'll be speaking to each of them about their priorities for the state of New Hampshire.
All right, Governor-elect, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.